Number 16-7970.
WNXX Jackson, KNXX Donaldsonville, and WDGL HD2. This hour brought to you by Spencer Cal. Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Monday. Brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. Hope your work week is off to a good start. Got Jacob Beck and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. And fired up, you're spending some time with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Denton Day, an hour and a half from right now, talking college football playoff. Carr out for the season. We're going to talk about that. LSU got a basketball win yesterday in the PMAC, and Saints got a win, but their quarterback, as we mentioned, is out. So lots and lots to get to here on this Monday. So let's get things rolling the same way we do each and every day with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's opening drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
Every car on the lot at Genesis of Baton Rouge online, genesisofbatonrouge.com. I want to start today with the transfer portal because it's open. And we got news last week about some players who were expressing their intention to get into the transfer portal, but no one could actually enter said portal until today. And so LSU has not seen any sort of mass exodus here today. The only name that I have seen thus far that has announced their intention that we did not already know about was Nathan Dibert, who handled kickoff duties in 2022 and 2023, but Aaron Burrell took the reins of that role this year, so Dibert will look elsewhere to finish his college career. But nobody else from LSU's roster today that I have seen has announced their intention to enter the transfer portal. You've got a couple of weeks to get that done. But what I did want to talk about today, as it refers to LSU, was what LSU needs to be looking for in the transfer portal. I've got a story up at louisianasports.net, and you can read probably in a little bit more depth than I'm going into here in a 10-minute radio segment. But I talked about what LSU needs to be shopping for in the transfer portal. Last year, we knew that LSU was very much in the market for defensive tackle, and we also know that the defensive tackle market was pretty limited, so the supply and demand dictated that the values went up for those players in terms of NIL money, and LSU did not want to play with the big boys in that way for those specific players. So you ended up with a transfer from Grand Valley State instead of one from a Power 5 school. That was the mentality that LSU had a year ago this time. This time around, I think you're going to see LSU swim in the big pool. We've seen LSU in the transfer portal over the last 3 seasons really rely on a lot of Louisiana kids who had gone elsewhere and come back. The Jarek Bernard Converses, the Logan Diggs, guys who were from the state, played a couple years elsewhere, came back to finish their time at LSU. Maybe in the case of Zy Alexander or Kyron Lacey, played at a smaller school in Louisiana and wanted to go play for the flagship and played at LSU. But a lot of LSU's portal, not all of it, certainly got your Miles Fraziers and your C.J. Daniels, and you've got some guys that don't have any ties to the state, but a lot of the guys that they've taken have just been guys who wanted to come home. That's not the case anymore. You've got to go get impact guys, not ancillary pieces like dudes. And I think LSU is positioned to do that. Now, they're going to have to prove me right on that, because to this point, they haven't necessarily shown that they're willing to swim in those waters, but they've got to try that. And I wrote a piece at LouisianaSports.net, as I said, that went through the top 5 needs that I think LSU has. There are more, but these are the ones that I ranked 1 through 5 in order of significance. And I started with the same position that I talked about last week singularly, and that's wide receiver. You look at wide receiver with this team right now. Kyron Lacey is gone. He was your number 1. C.J. Daniels is gone. He was one of your top options. Landon Ibieta and Shelton Sampson have announced that they're going to go into the transfer portal. And you've got Kyle Parker, who's hurt. He had the triceps injury that cost him the second half of the season. So the only healthy wide receiver options moving into 2025 on this team right now are Aaron Anderson, who had a really nice year, Xavier Thomas, who's really athletic and fast and a little bit undersized like Anderson, Chris Hilton, who has not shown he can stay healthy and has an opportunity to potentially test the waters in professional if he wants to. And then you've got 2 signees in Teron Francis and Phillip Wright. That's basically it. So that's not going to get it. You got to go get some dudes. And you got to go get a legit number 1 receiver. It's an easy sales pitch at wide receiver. You got, right now, a fifth-year quarterback going into his second year who was top 10 in the country in passing. You've got playing time readily available and a program that produces a lot of NFL talent at wide receiver. It's a good sales pitch. Then you toss the money in. You got to go get a number 1 wide receiver. I talked about this last week, so we won't go too deep into it. But you know the guys that I'm talking about, the Jamison Williams and the Jermaine Burtons and those guys that have made that type of impact transferring to another school over the years. Now, that's number 1. Number 2 is not a position that we've talked a lot about, but as I look at the roster, like, it's something LSU's absolutely got to address, and it's edge rusher. Kevin Peoples did a fantastic job this year with Braden Swinson and Savion Jones. Neither one of those guys was a real impact player last season. They played behind Ovi Gofu, and they just weren't impactful players last year. Well, Swinson had a monster year. He's probably going to be a 2nd or 3rd round draft pick. And Savion Jones had clearly his best year of his 4 in Baton Rouge. He lost a little bit of weight. He was really good at times against the run. He showed some pass rush ability. Those 2 guys had good seasons. But they're moving on. And so is Deshaun Womack, who has announced his intention to get in the transfer portal. So you've got a pretty clear void on the edges right now if you're LSU. Gabriel Welliford was a big-time recruit, played a little bit this year, and he's got the talent to be an all-league type player. But he's not proven to that point. And what's opposite him? You've got Dylan Carpenter, who didn't play very much. I thought Kalaj Cobbins had a really good camp, but he's a little bit undersized to be a defensive end, more of an outside linebacker type. C.J. Jackson did not see the field on this team. So, like, you don't have a lot of proven depth at edge. So you bring in Damian Shanklin in this class. I don't know if he's going to be ready or not, but that's really it. And that's not good. Like, you've got to get after the passer if you want to win at an elite level. And I don't see anybody on this roster that has proven they can do that. Everybody that's set to be on the team next year, you pull them all together, they've combined for half a sack in college. Half. So if you're LSU, you got to go find the next Princely Umanmielen, who left Florida, went to Ole Miss, and had 10.5 sacks. You got to find the next Nick Scorton, who left Purdue, where he was the Big Ten sacks leader, and played for A&M this year, and is going to be a top 15 pick. You got to find that guy. You've got to get difference makers on the edge. I'm okay with holding one spot for Gabe Relaford. I think he's a good player. But you gotta go get somebody else to get after the passer. The third spot that I've got, and I was specific about this on the website, it's a little bit more fluid than this, but just bear with me. I have left tackle. Go get a left tackle, because that's the best player on your offensive line, way more often than not. Am I going to go nuts if LSU adds an elite center instead? No. You need help on the offensive line, is basically, but if you can solidify the left tackle spot, I think you can play with some pieces elsewhere. Maybe Emory Jones comes back and handles right tackle. Maybe he bumps down to guard. Maybe DJ Chester is your second-year starting center. Maybe he moves to guard and Cohen Eccles moves in. Tyree Adams, who may be the heir apparent to left tackle, maybe can move into guard if you bring in a left tackle. I don't know what the future holds for Weston Davis either. Paul Mabenga played well in his last couple of games. Like, you've got some options, and you're going to have to mix and match on the offensive front. But I kind of would like to start with a stud left tackle. If there's one out in the portal, boom, LSU needs to get on that in a hurry. So you got number 1, wide receiver. Number 2, edge rusher. Number 3, left tackle. Number 4, tight end. We talked about this last week. But Mason Taylor moves on. You got a couple guys in the program, Kamorian Pimpton and Trey'Dez Green. They can't block. I believe they'll be better blockers in 8-9 months than they are today. I believe they're willing. I believe they're going to put on some weight. But their skill set is going to be pass catching. That's what they're best at. You need a 265-pound tight end that can get in there and block SEC edge rushers, that can get in there and help you in the run game. You need to add that. That shouldn't be expensive, shouldn't be super hard to find. I feel like there are a lot of big physical dudes who may not be the fastest, may not be elite pass catchers that would like to come play football at LSU and get dirty. Tight end, number 4. And number 5, I've got quarterback. Now, if Garrett Nussmeier declares for the draft or Garrett Nussmeier enters the transfer portal, which we'll see, then that becomes number 1, obviously. Ricky Collins has moved on. You've got A.J. Swan. You saw that in the Vanderbilt game, Oklahoma game. You've got was that Vanderbilt or Oklahoma when Nussmeier got hurt? They're
that was Oklahoma
going together. Okay, Oklahoma. So yeah, that's right, because he came back, so we got to do it for the seniors. All that. That's right. So that goes to number 1 if Nussmeier moves. But you've got A.J. Swan, you've got Colin Hurley, and you don't have one in this class. So while some might put it towards the top right now, honestly, if you've got Garrett Nussmeier back, I'm not uber concerned with who the backup quarterback is. That may be short-sighted, but I just feel like most teams that lose their starting quarterback are going to be in some trouble. Yes, I watched the SC Championship game over the weekend. If LSU wants to bring in some talent at quarterback, I'm all for it. However, it's probably going to be difficult if Nussmeier stays, because not a lot of players are jumping in the transfer portal to go sit on the bench. So if you can find a young guy who's willing to sit a year and feel like he's the heir apparent to Nussmeier after he leaves, well, that's great. It just feels a little bit difficult to find. Most guys are going to transfer where they can play. So I put quarterback down at number 5. That'll complete my list. Goes wide receiver, edge rusher, left tackle, tight end, and quarterback. And we'll see how aggressive LSU is allowed to be. I'm fascinated by this because we have not seen an aggressive LSU in the portal. And we all assume that's going to happen. But let's be realistic. Like, LSU is not the only team in the country who is entering this offseason going, hey, we need to be aggressive in spending money in the transfer portal. Like, that's what almost everyone is saying. Save Clemson, everybody else is getting on the phones today and setting up visits and trying to restock the shelves. Dabo's probably at the pool or something, but everybody else is trying to get in the transfer portal and make it happen. And LSU's very much in that, and we hear they're going to be aggressive, but just how effective is that going to be? That fascinates me, just how much LSU can flex in said transfer portal. We'll know the names of the guys that they're looking at. We'll see who they're competing against, and we'll find out how deep those pockets really are. Because as constituted right now, LSU does not have enough talent at wide receiver. The offensive line is very much a question mark. You've got half a sack returning at defensive end. You don't have a tight end on the roster that can block. And your quarterback situation beyond Nussmeier is tenuous. So there are clear issues that have to be figured out. I'm curious how LSU goes about that, and we will find out over the next month how well LSU can go shopping. That's our Genesis opening drive here on this Monday. We're brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. All your printing, scanning, copying needs, Gulf Coast Office Products, GCOPnet.com. We come back. LSU got a win on the basketball court yesterday. I'll give my thoughts on that along with some sound from Matt McMahon. That's next on The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. Safety is a big deal in the bathroom, especially as folks age. That can be a hazardous area in the house. Make it safer. Mitigate some of those issues with non-slip floors, with a bench in the shower, with guardrails around the slippery areas. All that can be done with the folks at One Bath and Closets. Walk-in tub, make things very convenient, safer. If you've got a loved one that's aging in your life and they want to stay home, but could be an issue, David Vall is happy to help you with that. They got financing available, 18 months, 0% if you qualify. Start that process today with a free consultation at OneBathAndClosets.com. It's One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com.
Bayou Ford has the new inventory to get you in a new Ford truck or SUV today, or customize your next vehicle just the way you want it. All new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 1 million mile powertrain warranty. the crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a...
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Chugging along here, Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Denton Day in an hour and 15 minutes talking college football. I've got my thoughts on the college football playoff. I actually made a college football playoff bracket that is just based on my own criteria. Nothing to do with anything the committee did. We'll see if it looks better than the one that they came up with yesterday. Talk about that a little bit later. Plus some news from Saints land. Derek Carr, broken hand, is very likely to miss the remainder of the season. So we'll get to that here in a moment. LSU back out on the basketball court yesterday against Florida Gulf Coast. I don't know if this is going to be a Sweet 16 run for Dunk City. They did not look very good yesterday. But LSU did play a pretty good basketball game. I think if you look at the final score, you might say, oh, I mean, they only won by 9. Like, that's not that great. It was 18 with about 3 minutes to go. Florida Gulf Coast threw in 3 late threes that made the score look a little prettier from their perspective. But LSU controlled the action really from the start. There were no issues with that slow start that they've been getting off to, trailing these poor teams at halftime and then whitewash them in the second half. They really got off to a good start in the game and never really looked back. If you look at the first half box, LSU shot 54% from the floor and 43% from three-point range. They made 6 of their 7 free throws in the first half. It was a pretty solid effort. I didn't like the 9 turnovers early in the game, but I have a theory on a little bit of that. Chest had 3 of those. And then you had another one there from Damian Collins, and those guys are playing more minutes than they had. They're being asked to do a little bit more offensively than they had with Jalen Reed now being out, and I think that you can chalk some of those turnovers up to those guys just not handling the ball a lot early in the season. But really, when you look at it, LSU played a really good basketball game and kept Florida Gulf Coast at arm's length for the entire ball game. My biggest thing I was watching in this game, and I wrote this at LouisianaSports.net, was what do the LSU front court players look like offensively with Jalen Reed out of the picture? He is clearly the most skilled and productive offensive front court player LSU has on the roster. Damian Collins was a 5-star recruit, but through basically 3 years in college, he's been more of kind of a around the rim player, lobs, putbacks, kind of dirty work stuff. Corey Chest, very much the same type deal. Neither of those guys is often going to put the ball on the floor and create anything. They're not great shooters, but they're going to have to do something offensively. You can't rely on the guards to do everything on the offensive end of the floor. And I thought in this game that Damian Collins and Corey Chest did give you some punch on the offensive end of the floor. In fact, I asked Matt McMahon after the game in his post-game press conference, what did you like from Damian Collins offensively? And here's the answer he gave me.
I think it's a great observation. I've always said the probably most surprising thing when we first got Damian here was I didn't realize how skilled he was as a player. And the way Gulf Coast was defending the ball screens, Damian was able to work in that short roll area, 12 to 15 feet out right by the free throw line. And I thought he was really effective as a passer, but also you saw him hit that nice little floater on the SEC logo. You saw his footwork, ability to get to the rim. I thought his skill package was on full display there on the ball screen attack.
I completely agree with Matt McMahon on both points. I thought Damian Collins absolutely showed some polish offensively, and I thought it was an incredible observation by me.
I think it's a great observation.
Just a great observation by me. What an observation guy I am. Look, I was impressed with Damian Collins. He stepped out and hit a three right after halftime. He did hit a little floater in the lane from, as Matt mentioned, the SEC logo. You saw at another point he pump faked, got a guy to leave his feet, and then he stepped under and had a little finger roll that showed a little bit of touch as well. So, look, nobody's going to mistake him for a first-team All-American or the nation's leading scorer anytime soon. But just a little bit of polish on the offensive side goes a long way. I don't expect Damian Collins to hit a three most nights, but if you can show that that's at least part of the arsenal, then they at least have to respect it. And that was what I was concerned about as Jalen Reed went out. You had to go guard him on the three-point line. He's a 40% three-point shooter last year in league play. You can't just leave him out there. And in my opinion, teams can leave Corey Chest and Damian Collins out there and sag in and try to cut off driving lanes from Cam Carter and from Jordan Steers. And that is a big problem for LSU because those two guys have to create offense for LSU. And so if Collins can at least go out there and give you something, then teams have to respect that. And look, Damian Collins led LSU in scoring yesterday. He had 18 points. He was 8 of 13 from the floor. And then you look at Corey Chest, and he was extremely efficient on the offensive side. He was 6 of 7 from the floor, scored those 12 points, and he grabbed 12 rebounds as well. So I thought an encouraging effort from LSU's front court players in their first kind of game to prep for with Jordan Reed being out. He went down 2 minutes into the Florida State game, so they effectively had to play the game without him on Tuesday, but they didn't prepare that way. They at least had a chance to prepare in this game, and those two guys went out there and started, and I thought gave LSU some really quality minutes in the game. The guards were very, very good, especially shooting the ball. You look at Jordan Sears, Jai Bailey, and Cam Carter. Those three guys combined to go 7 for 16 from three-point range. That's rock solid for them. And they're going to have to carry a lot of the scoring load here. All of LSU starters were in double figures, and they got to 80 points against a team that really wants to slow it down. Florida Gulf Coast entered this game in the bottom 15 teams in the country in terms of pace. LSU entered this game 25th in the country in pace, and LSU was able to push the pace. The Tigers scored 80 points in the game. They got out and scored more than 40 points in the first half, so that was good for LSU to kind of dictate that pace and to play at the pace that they wanted to. I thought that while the turnovers were a problem in the first half, they cleaned that up in the second half. They only had 5 turnovers in the second half. Cam Carter and Jai Bailey played a clean second half as far as turnover goes, which was really nice to see. And the other thing that you look at in this game is that Noah Boyd was able to return to action. He's coming back from a torn ACL. If you're completely unfamiliar with Noah Boyd, that's fine. His junior college transfer, 7-footer that LSU brought in. I don't know how big a role he's going to have in SEC play, but when Jalen Reed goes down, you've got to at least account for the fact that on a given night, Damian Collins and or Corey Chest could get into foul trouble. Robert Miller would be next to come in, but it's just nice to have that other body in Boyd, who's big and strong and can maybe get in there and grab a couple rebounds and at least give you 5 fouls that you've got. So he had not appeared in the game yet. He was just cleared to practice this past week and was able to get out there at the very end of the game for about a minute. So he's close to being able to help just a little bit. Beck, you pointed something out to me that I did not realize at the game yesterday. Of course, in the first half of the game, I was chasing a 3-year-old around.
Yeah, we need to get a report on that.
Buying chicken fingers. He loved it. Had a great time. Left at halftime. A little scared of the mascot Mike. That's a little bit much for him, but he did enjoy the basketball. He did spill ketchup all over himself and dumped the entire chicken tender basket down into the row in front of us.
That's good.
Which happens. That's what it is. Enjoyed some lemonade. Had a good time. He very much enjoyed it, but I did not notice as I was chasing him around, Mike Williams did not play in this game, and they cleared the entire bench and brought in the walk-ons and Trace Young and Adam Benayoun, and they did not play Mike Williams, which is a little interesting.
Yeah, I'm concerned as I think you are as well. I texted you last night, and I was like, man, Mike Williams didn't get in. What happened there? Because I didn't get to watch the game. So yeah, that's a bit concerning, especially in this day and age where we have guys, if they see the writing on the wall, they may decide, or even during the season, hey, I'm gonna, step away and get ready to go in the transfer portal. So not great, because I really think Mike Williams can be really important to this team next year. Whenever you lose Sears and Carter and Bailey, but this year obviously, it just so happened that LSU was able to bring in 2 really good guards. And roll 3 really, and so now he's got to kind of have to stay back. So I don't know if he's going to stay, but we'll see. And
Curtis Givens, I mean, he played 13 minutes last night, so you're playing the freshman point guard as opposed to Mike Williams, who's a sophomore. And candidly, I'm looking for a little bit more out of Curtis Givens. He has not looked super comfortable. He's not shot the ball well at all. I'm still really high on Curtis Givens, to be clear. I loved his film in high school and think he's got a bright future.
Struggling.
Good thing we got a cough button there. But that's not fun. But Givens, I'm expecting a little bit more from him. And right now, I don't know how much he's going to be able to help in SEC games. But they got to have somebody to come in and help run the point. And Williams has proven he can do that. And I'm like you. I'm curious that he didn't get in. And that just doesn't paint a rosy picture. To be very clear, we don't know anything.
No.
And there certainly hasn't been any news or there's no. It's just an observation that in a game where every player on the roster except Mike Williams got in and the freshman point guard played 13 minutes, it's curious. So we'll see. LSU doesn't play this week. They're off for finals. They won't play again until they go to Frisco on Saturday to play an 8-2 SMU team that is in the ACC now. So we'll talk a little bit more hoops as we move forward, but I'm curious that Mike Williams did not see any playing time, but I thought yesterday against a team that's not very good in Florida Gulf Coast that LSU played a solid basketball game, and the 9 points is not really indicative of what LSU did on the floor. They were clearly the better team and had control of that game by upwards of 15 points for a significant margin of the second half. So LSU wins that game. They'll take the week for finals, and then they'll go play the SMU Mustangs coming up on Saturday. All right, let's step aside. What are the Saints going to do now? They're starting quarterbacks out for the rest of the year. That's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Of course, I'm going to tell you about Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Give yourself the peace of mind to know that the power is not going to go out at your home or your business. Get a Generac home standby generator installed in your home soon. Know that hurricanes are in the rearview mirror for this year. There's always another season around the corner. And if you ride out a hurricane and the power goes out, that's a big bummer. Even if you evacuate for a hurricane, you don't want to come back to a house that's 97 degrees and has everything rotten in the fridge. You want to come back to a cooled house that's powered up and moving. And that's what you can have if you get that Generac home standby generator from the folks at Boudreaux's Electrical Services. You can call either phone number, but I would prefer to just tell you to go to the website. It makes things a lot easier. You can get that quote and start your process today with the folks at Boudreaux's Electrical. They are online at boudreauxelectrical.com, boudreauxelectrical.com.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram can get you in a new 2025 Ram 1500 truck with $15,000 off MSRP. $15,000 off the newly designed Ram 1500 truck. All new Bayou Automotive vehicles come with a complimentary 7-year powertrain warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial properties. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Looking for the ultimate game day experience? Come to the Queen Casino in Baton Rouge. Savor game day platters and snacks, plus drink specials at 1717 Kitchen and Cocktail. So come out for game day.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
All your printing, scanning, copying needs, Gulf Coast Office Products, gcopnet.com, gcopnet.com. You know, the beauty of doing business with the mom and pop shop is that you're going to have a great relationship with your customers. The beauty of doing business with the big box stores, they've got all the resources possible. But the downside of dealing with the mom and pop shop is they may not have the resources. The downside of doing business with the big box stores, you're just kind of a line item for them. Gulf Coast Office Products is right there in the middle, right there in the sweet spot. They've got plenty of resources statewide to help you out with your printing, scanning, copying. They've got a lot of techs that can be out and help you out if you've got an issue. They've got plenty of machinery that's right here on site in Baton Rouge or throughout the state. They can get to you in a pinch if you need that. But they also have a great relationship with their clients. And that's what Trey Beal prides himself on. He's fantastic to work with. We do here at Guarantee Media. If you're in the market for printers, scanners, copiers, Gulf Coast Office Products, gcopnet.com. All right, the Saints and Giants played yesterday, and I'll be pretty blunt. It was not a work of art. Those two teams are not good. They did not look good yesterday, but the Saints did do enough to win, and they did so in dramatic fashion. It looked like the Saints were going to let it slip away. They controlled the game the entire way. Defense was smothering a terrible Giants offense, and then they go down and get a touchdown, and they get the 2-point conversion to Neighbors, and the Saints can't put it away offensively. You got a backup quarterback in there, and you give the Giants the ball at the end, and then Locke gets loose, and then he hits Neighbors, and all of a sudden they're down there in the field goal range. You're thinking, well, they may take a couple shots at the end zone, which they did, and they may beat you, which could have happened. Instead, the Saints thwarted that. Giants line up for a field goal, and Brzee blocks it there near the gun. And that was, as bad as that football game was, and it was bad, that play Brzee made was incredibly athletic. And that's what you saw from him when they were putting together the highlight package when they drafted Brian Brzee. Like, this guy is big, but he can really move. And I thought that yesterday was as good a game as he has played in his year and a half in New Orleans. I thought he was active. I thought he was disruptive. He got back there for a sack. He had some batted balls at the line of scrimmage. I thought Brzee looked fantastic in that game. And then he makes the play to win it, and I thought that was pretty fitting that he was the one that kind of nailed it down at the end. I thought he was great. The Saints offense struggled. They could not run the ball at all against a bad Giants defensive front. That was disappointing that the Saints couldn't get anything going in the run game. And Derek Carr did what he could do, and then he's trying to make a play there at the end to try to win the game, to convert that third down. He goes airborne, and apparently on this dive, he broke his hand and had a concussion. Like that's about as bad as a dive can go. So Darren Rizzi has just met with the assembled media down there in New Orleans and confirmed that Derek Carr does have a fracture in his left hand. The reporting from Ian Rappaport, the NFL Network, was that was going to cost Derek Carr the rest of his season. It was going to require surgery, and he would miss the rest of the season. Darren Rizzi just came to the microphone and said, no, it's not going to be season-ending. It's his offhand. It's going to be a week-to-week thing. And this is Hunt talking, not Darren Rizzi. Now, I'm betting Derek Carr goes out there and tries to play. And there's not really a point in that.
No.
It seems like a fool's errand, but that's just what we've seen from Derek Carr. If he can buckle his chin strap and get out there, he can do it. And it doesn't matter how much pain he's in. Now, he missed those games early this year because he literally couldn't throw. Like, he could not raise his arm to throw the ball. So that pretty much disqualifies you from playing quarterback in the National Football League. Last year, he was probably too hurt to play, and he gutted through it and went out there and played. It did not look good, and when he got healthy towards the end of the season, he played significantly better. No surprise. My guess is that we're going to see Derek Carr back sooner rather than later. I think a lot of players would just get this thing operated on and get to the offseason. I just don't think Derek Carr is wired that way. And so I expect to see Derek Carr at some point. You saw Jake Haener go into the game yesterday. The question now becomes, will you start Jake Haener or will you start Spencer Rattler in this game? Rizzi said today that the entire staff determined that they were going to go with Spencer Rattler initially when Carr got hurt this year. You've got a different staff now because Dennis Allen is gone. So we'll see what the decision is here. I kind of think that if Clint Kubiak has a big say here, and I'm just not sure what that dynamic is between Kubiak and Rizzi and who really makes that call. If I'm Rizzi, I'm letting the offensive coordinator determine who's going to be the quarterback, but sometimes head coaches say, hey, I'm the head coach, I will make the call, and then we'll figure it out after that. It feels like since Kubiak was here when the Saints drafted Spencer Rattler, that would be the guy that you would go to, but we haven't confirmed that. It was not a great go for Rattler his first time around. The Saints offensive line was massively compromised at that point. Now the wide receiver group is massively compromised, so it's not a perfect situation, but it's a little bit better. I think if you ask a quarterback, hey, I'm going to decimate one of your units, you want me to decimate the offensive line, you want me to decimate the wide receiver group, I think they would say, go ahead and decimate the wide receiver group. I need my protection up front. I need to run the ball. So he'll get that opportunity, hopefully, if it's his turn, but it's just not a lot in that first audition that gives me a ton of confidence that we're going to see some sort of spark from Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, on Derek Carr, it's very admirable and respectable that Derek tries to play through injuries, but he needs to just sit out the rest of the season. There's no need for him. I mean, technically speaking, the Saints
are still alive, baby.
Because the Falcons the Bucs have won 3 in a row, but they've played against terrible teams. But the Falcons keep throwing up on themselves.
They're awful.
They're really bad. But man, Derek Carr, that was that was a terrible play on his part. Why would you think that you're not that athletic? You pull on a zone read and try to get around the edge and dive in the air like Superman and get hit hit midair and fall on your hand. That was just a very unsmart play by him.
It looked like a fairly benign dive. And then all of a sudden you find out not only did he break his hand, he's in concussion protocol.
He went airborne, Hunt. Derek Carr going airborne is not good for the Saints. Don't go airborne. Run out of bounds and get 3rd and 1 and get converted.
Derek Carr going airborne is not good for the Saints.
It's not.
You need to play that McMahon bite there. That's great insight by you. Really big, really good insight there by you. I mean, No, he plays hard. Like you can discredit Derek Carr for a lot of things.
Yeah.
He's never won much as an NFL quarterback. He's not a all-pro caliber guy. It doesn't appear he's ever going to be a division winner or make a run to a Super Bowl. Like there's plenty to criticize in Derek Carr's game. What you cannot criticize with him is his toughness and his willingness to fight and play. He gives you everything he's got when he's out there. Just happens that everything he's got isn't all that great. But I think he's going to be out there. And if I'm a Saints fan, this is not a fun conversation to have. I preface it this way every single time, but we're going to have to be frank and have the discussion. Like, the Saints are a long way away from being really good. And I think that the best thing here, if you're a Saints fan, this does not apply to the organization internally, but if you're a fan on the outside, like, you'd kind of rather see Spencer Rattler, and if he plays really good, then that's great. Maybe something to build on in the future. If he plays terrible and you lose 4 games at the end here, then you get a better draft pick. Like, that's kind of the win-win in this situation. If Carr's out there and you win some games, like, that doesn't prove anything. And maybe there's some Saints fans that are still clinging to the hope that the Saints can make the playoffs. I've kind of let that go by the wayside here over the last few weeks. But, like, I'd rather see Rattler out there, and you can kind of make peace with whatever result it is. If it's really positive, great. You got a young quarterback who's showed some promise. If it's a negative, then, hey, you're going to move up in draft position. You've won too many games now to think you're going to get like a top 3 pick or anything. You're now, what is that? That's 5 or 6 wins.
They're 5-8.
5 wins. So you've won too many games now to really angle for a high pick. But anything's better. As you continue to move up, it's better by the run.
I'll take the 7th pick over the 17th pick.
No doubt. I mean, that's kind of where I've been, but I understand the Saints fans that want to say, "Hey, we're still clinging to hope," and haha, the Falcons suck.
So okay, let's just really quickly just dive through the NFC South real quick. Tampa Bay are 7-6. They've won 3 in a row. They got the Chargers. They got to go to LA. That doesn't mean anything. It's basically going to be a home game for them. Who cares? They got to go to the Chargers, who are playing pretty well, and then they got to go to Dallas, who are terrible. They got to play the Panthers, and they finish with the Saints. So theoretically, let's say, I mean,
playing the Cowboys and the Panthers. I mean, if you're a Saints fan and you can work that into 2 losses, God bless you.
Okay, yeah. So let's just say, they lose to the Chargers. They're still going to be at 9-7 going into that Saints game. The Saints, so then that would mean the Saints are going to have to win out. They're going to have
the
to
Saints
win
had to win out anyway.
Yeah, they have to win out
anyway.
So it's not looking great.
No, it's not. And look, Sunday was not exactly super encouraging.
No, it was terrible.
The Giants are awful.
That was the worst game. I think that might be the worst game. The worst game the Saints have played this. Even the losses, the Chargers loss was not great. Broncos loss wasn't great, but that was a horrible performance against a really bad team.
Well, it was just so boring. It was just a punt fest. It was a 3-and-out fest for the entire first half.
You couldn't run the ball against a terrible Giants
had nowhere
defense.
to go. But look, they stopped the run. The Giants really only offense in the run game came when Locke ran for 25 yards at the end of the game. Like, they didn't do anything either.
Yeah.
But they hung in it. They were in the game. They had a chance to kick the field goal to tie. So it's not like you're on some sort of ascent here if you're New Orleans. You scraped by against one of the worst teams in the league, against a team that's certainly going to fire its head coach and may make some more changes with that roster up there in New York. So not super encouraging, but we'll see what the future holds with the Saints at quarterback, as Derek Carr has broken his non-throwing hand. If you're looking for Saints content, you can always find it on YouTube, Hunt on Saints. You can also find all of our Saints content in podcast form, wherever you find your content. Podcast, go to Hunt on Saints. Search it, like, subscribe, rate, and review. We always certainly appreciate all of that. All right, we'll step aside. We'll close out hour number 1 coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. Every car online is on the lot, and vice versa. Online, it's at genesisofbatonrouge.com. It's the only fully exclusive Genesis dealer in the state of Louisiana. If you're in the market for a vehicle, you're probably going to end up on Airline Highway if you're in Baton Rouge. If you're on Airline Highway and you're shopping for a vehicle, just make one more stop. Check out Genesis of Baton Rouge right there across from Women's Hospital at Pico on Airline, and stop on by. Tell them the Hunt Palmer Show sent you in. You'd like to take a look around and get behind the wheel of one of those Genesis. It's just a fantastic product. It's sleek, stylish, comfortable, safe. Got everything you're looking for in a luxury vehicle. It's right there at Genesis of Baton Rouge. You may not have ever been behind the wheel of a Genesis. It's fairly new to the game, and it's certainly new here in Baton Rouge at that location on Pico. Try it out. this holiday season, go get behind the wheel. Just give it a look. Genesis of Baton Rouge. Check them out online, genesisofbatonrouge.com, genesisofbatonrouge.com.
It's no secret. The best oysters in Baton Rouge are at Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar. Enjoy mouth-watering South Louisiana flavor and oysters from all over the country. And don't forget our nightly drink specials. Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar, located in downtown Baton Rouge.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Bayou Ford has the new inventory to get you in a new Ford truck or SUV today, or customize your next vehicle just the way you want it. All new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 1 million mile powertrain warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Looking for the ultimate game day experience? Come to the Queen Casino in Baton Rouge. Wall-to-wall TVs mean you'll see every touchdown in HD. Place your bets and feel the thrill of every play with our draft.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Wrapping up hour number 1 here on the Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Hope your work week is off to a good start. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Denton Day coming up in about 45 minutes. I'm going to lead off the second hour with my proposed college football playoff bracket that doesn't have any criteria at all, just the best tournament possible. I will give you that coming up here in about 12 minutes. College basketball latest net rankings are out. LSU comes in this Monday edition at number 56. That's down 6 spots from this time last week, even with the win over Florida State, Florida Gulf Coast. Going to drag you down a little bit there, but LSU number 56. Incidentally, there are only 2 SEC teams that are lower than LSU in the net. You've got Texas at number 64, and then you've got South Carolina who comes in at number 98. So everybody else is ahead of LSU at 56. I'm going to do something right now, and I can almost guarantee you that I will have this exact same segment in like 3 weeks. Almost exactly. But I feel like I can do it now too. I need to mentally prepare LSU fans for what is going to go on here in January and February and early March. Because what the SEC is doing right now in basketball has never been done before. There are multiple stories that are out there about the SEC, their one-loss record, their wins against the top 5, where they are in the rankings. Like, there's never been a conference that has had a start to a season like this. You look at the net rankings. Tennessee's 1, Auburn's 2, Kentucky's 5, Florida's 7, Alabama's 10. That's 5 of the top 10. Then you go down a little bit further, and you get to Mississippi State at 20, Georgia at 22, and Ole Miss at 29. You look at the games that the SEC has won. You're talking about beating Houston twice. You're talking about beating Duke. You're talking about beating UConn, North Carolina. Yesterday, Missouri, who's not even thought to be a great team, beat number 1 Kansas and controlled the game from start to finish. John Rothstein covers college basketball about as fervently as anybody in the country. I would suggest probably as much as anyone. And his tweet from yesterday kind of says it all about the current state of the SEC. It's just been remarkable, and I'm scrolling through to get to this tweet. But it talks about the depth of the league, not just the fact that Alabama and Auburn are really good, not just the fact that Kentucky is talented and Arkansas has got some first rounders. You're talking about teams toward the bottom. He tweets, Vanderbilt, who was picked 16th in the SEC preseason bowl, is now 9-1 and 4-0 this season against power conference opponents with this win over TCU. That's a team that was picked last, and they're rolling people. The same goes for Missouri. So it's the best league in the country by far. And LSU is going to have some really rough nights in the league. Really rough. Like, you're going to get blown out some, and you're going to lose a lot of games. I don't see a world where this LSU team is going to go 12-6 in this pressure cooker. So my approach to conference play for LSU, and this is me personally as I watch it, you got to take every game individually and not worry about the fact that, oh my gosh, we've lost 3 in a row. Every game individual, and LSU has got to find a way to get to 8 league wins. If you can go 8-10, I don't care how you get there. If you can go 8-10, I think LSU will have done enough to get in the NCAA tournament because of what they've already done in the pre-conference and because of the respect I believe that the SEC will get. Because keep in mind, this whole thing shuts down on January 1st. Then all your games are in league. So the way that your league will be shaped is done in the pre-conference, and the SEC is steamrolling people. So it's going to be rough, and you can't give up on the season or give up on the program because LSU's lost 3 in a row in the league. Because, it's just going to happen. But they've got to find a way to scrap and fight and claw and get to 8 league wins. That's, my mentality for this team. And that's an odd thing to say about a team that's, whatever they are, 8-1, that has already 3 Power 5 wins, and you're thinking, well, this is a team that can really compete. And maybe they can. Maybe they'll prove me dead wrong, but I don't anticipate it because you start to look at some of these stretches in the schedule where you've got at Missouri, who just beat Kansas, at Ole Miss, who's in the top 25. Arkansas comes to town with 2 first-round picks. At Texas A&M, who scored another ranked win yesterday. At Alabama, who's a top 5 team in the country. Auburn, who's a top 5 team in the that's all in a row. And that is not to mention a stretch later in the season.
6 in a row there.
I mean, that's not to mention a stretch later in the season where you have Florida, who's top 10 in the net. Then you have Tennessee. Those are both home games. You go to Mississippi State, who's ranked. Then you're at Kentucky. Then you got Texas A&M. That's the close to the season. So, it's just going to be really difficult. And you've got to enter it, in my opinion, and I'm being a little bit preachy here, but I'm just trying to get the point across. You've got to enter that 18-game stretch knowing there can be some bad days. You run into an Auburn team that's knocking down shots, you could lose by 30 easy. It is what it is. You run into an Alabama team. We've seen a Nate Oates team come into the PMAC. I remember sitting at that game, and they came in and they made everything they looked at for the first 8 minutes of the game. Everything. And LSU lost the game by 20. It's just never competitive. And that's going to happen some. And that doesn't mean you suck. That doesn't mean the season's over. That doesn't mean you can't make the tournament. You've just got to find a way to scrap and claw. LSU is going to be outmanned, in my opinion, in quite a few SEC games. We just have not seen a league that looks like this before. So I'm just like a month out from starting SEC play. I'm starting to get in the mindset of like, man, you got to understand that every once in a while, it's going to be bumpy. And you may have a week where you lose a couple games that you're not that competitive in. You just got to come back and try to get the next one because you're trying to get to 8 wins somehow, some way. And it's a different approach than we really have on campus in really any sport. But that's just the nature of what this league is right now. It's wild at this point. So that's closing up hour number 1 here. We're going to step aside for Sports Center. Let's talk some college football playoff. I've got my version of a bracket. We'll see if it's better than the one the committee put out on Sunday. That's all next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Looking for the ultimate game day experience? Come to the Queen Casino in Baton Rouge. Savor game day platters and snacks, plus drink specials at 1717 Kitchen and Cocktail. So come out for game day and let our team make you the MVP. The Queen Casino, where every moment is a win.
At Atmos Energy, our smart choice solutions help customers save energy and emissions with rebates up to $500 off high-efficiency natural gas appliances, smart thermostats, and weatherization upgrades. Together, we're fueling our energy future.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram can get you in a new 2025 Ram 1500 truck with $15,000 off MSRP. $15,000 off the newly designed Ram 1500 truck. All new Bayou Automotive vehicles come with a complimentary 7-year powertrain warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood Subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. and we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
I'm Christine Lisi. As talks between North Carolina and Bill Belichick on the head coaching job continue, the former Patriots coach told the Pat McAfee Show today he's had a couple good conversations with Chancellor Lee Roberts, and they'll see how it goes. The sides reportedly met for 5 hours yesterday. Meantime, Tulane coach John Sumrall, reportedly high on the list of candidates at UNC, agreed to an extension with the Green Wave. The Cowboys enter their Monday Night Football matchup against the Bengals with slim postseason chances, 4 teams and 2.5 games out of the final NFC wildcard spot. And while he's not giving up on this season, All-Pro pass rusher Micah Parsons has an eye on the future. He wants to see Dallas return all of its key pieces in 2025.
I think I would like a fair shot with, everyone back, players, coaches, because, the injuries kind of struck of what this season could really be. In terms of coaching, man, Coach Mike, man, his relationship has always been really good.
Micah Parsons. Mike McCarthy is entering the final year of his deal in Dallas. Cowboys-Bengals Monday Night Football, 8 Eastern, ABC, ESPN, and ESPN2.
Hey, it's your resident Super Bowl champ, Chris Canty. After a wild Week 14, who will be my top 5 challengers to the Chiefs? Spoiler alert, there's a shakeup at the top. It's Unsportsmanlike, Tuesday morning, right here on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and ESPNU.
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour 2, Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Busy first hour talking transfer portal, talking LSU hoops, talking Derek Carr injury, Saints, and some college basketball as well. A lot of football here in hour number 2. Denton Day talking national college football picture 30 minutes from right now. So we've got plenty to get to. I want to start with the college football playoff being revealed yesterday. And I want to say this first because I think this is the most important thing. I love a 12-team playoff. I loved its impact on the regular season, and I think these matchups are awesome to look at on paper. I think just the concept of a playoff game between Clemson and Texas in Austin is awesome. Tennessee going to the Shoe to play a playoff game is awesome. The in-state rivalry between Indiana and Notre Dame, I think, is fascinating. This is much better than the first system, which was just play bowl games and vote on a national champion. This is much better than the BCS. This is much better than a 4-team playoff. This is awesome on its face. A 12-team playoff rocks. However, I cannot look at a system that has buys built in for Boise State and Arizona State. I'm sorry. I cannot allow for it. Boise State has spent the last 3 months playing Utah State and UNLV and Hawaii. And they are the 3 seed in a college football playoff. That ain't it. Absolutely broken. Yes, I am an elitist. Yes, I'm an LSU guy who has watched football played at the highest level in the Southeastern Conference, and I have an inherent bias toward that. That is on the table. We're not going to discuss it or argue about it. It just is. But I cannot have a team play in that conference, the Mountain West, whatever it is, and get a bye. That is broken. Cannot happen. And I'm sorry, Big 12, you don't get a bye either. That's not the Big 12. The Big 12 had Texas and Oklahoma in it. This just has the same name. But you don't get a bye the same way the American doesn't get a freebie. There's just no way. No way. I know Scadaboo runs really hard, and that's fun. He's got a big head. Everybody's watching on. No auto bid for you either. We've got to scrap that. I cannot look at a bracket that has Boise State and Arizona State scatting by because they don't play anyone who's good. That doesn't work for me. Now, I know that all of the discussion and all the angst has been about SMU and Indiana and the strength of schedule and Alabama and South Carolina and all this kind of stuff. I know that that's been all the hubbub, and I'll have some thoughts on that as well. But the biggest takeaway I have is we've seen this for the first time, and I was going to let it all kind of play out before I gave scorching hot takes on any of it. But now it's played out, and I can't look at that. I cannot look at free passes being given to schools that don't play anybody who's good. You have to fix that moving forward. And I think the way you've got to do it is to scrap the auto bids. Now, that drives people crazy because everybody wants a chance, and we got to give everybody a trophy, and it's not fair. Screw it. We have enough data. We understand how this sport works. There are some schools that play at an elite level. There are some schools that don't. And the schools that don't cannot be afforded the same benefits as the ones that do. I'm not here to state Alabama's case over SMU because as I knew in August before we started this thing, if you miss a 12-team playoff, you have yourself to blame. And Alabama, Oklahoma bites, and they kicked your butt. So you don't get to complain. You don't get to sit there and complain. Just the way it is. Georgia got a worse deal than you in terms of the schedule. They made it work. So I don't even care about that discussion. But what I will say is that you need to get the committee together and you need to rank them 1 through 12. The auto bids for conference champions, I don't care about. It's the only data point that doesn't put everyone on equal footing because you're telling me that Texas playing Georgia in the Georgia Dome is the same as Boise playing UNLV in Boise. That's not the same. These should not be rewarded equally. I don't care about conference championships. Give me the best teams. And I came up with a bracket. 1 through 12. Don't care about conference affiliation. This is the tournament that I'd want to see. If you put me in charge of college football and we were going to have to crown a champion, here's how I would have seeded them. Oregon 1, Georgia 2, Texas 3, Penn State 4, Tennessee 5, Ohio State 6, Notre Dame 7, South Carolina 8, Ole Miss 9, Alabama 10, Clemson 11, Miami 12. Miami's got a good quarterback. They shouldn't be in this field because they lost 2 games and their defense is terrible. But I don't care about watching Indiana play. I don't care about watching Boise State. I don't care about watching Arizona State. And they'll be gone pretty quick anyway. It doesn't really matter because when we boil this thing down, you're going to end up with Oregon and Georgia and Ohio State near the end. That's my opinion. Tennessee, potentially, but I don't think they're going to get through that. So they're not going to be relevant when you get to the Final Four in the final game. But I don't have any interest in watching TCU in the championship game anymore. So I'm just going to leave all of them out. I've got how many Big Ten teams? 1, 2, 3. 3 Big Ten teams. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 SEC teams. A couple ACCs and Notre Dame. And that's the way I'd like to see them play it off. They're never going to do that because people are afraid to get up there and say, hey, we don't respect your garbage conference. I don't really care. And that's seen as the wrong way to go about it. And I'm 100% certain that Jacob Hester, who knows more football than I'll ever know, would sit right in that chair next to me and tell me that I'm a moron. That's okay. I'm here for that. I just don't care about watching Arizona State play any more football. I don't care about watching Indiana play football. Indiana is here not because they're a great football team. They're here because the Big Ten office did them a favor, accidentally. And they got one chance to step up, and they didn't do it. And people are sit here and say, well, Boise State played Oregon close. Well, that was 3 months ago, and they hadn't done anything since then. So I just don't really care to see that. My opinion was that Boise was going to get shipped to a road game this whole time. Well, now they're the 3 seed because Clemson backdoored their way in here, and you got the Big 12 that fell behind them. I just don't have any use for that. Am I a nutback? Am I an elitist who needs to turn his microphone off?
I mean, you certainly are giving the elitist take, if you will.
Yes.
But let's just I I'm not going to say I disagree with you, but let's just let the games play out and see what happens. Okay, that's my view on it. Like, let's see how it plays out, and let's say in the next 3 years we see the Boise States and the Arizona States and the SMUs make it in the playoff and they get beat by 20 every game. Then just stop. Then the committee will have no reason to continue to do this. But for now, let them do it. And if it blows up in their face because these teams keep getting beat by 3 touchdowns in these playoff games, maybe they'll get wiser to it and they'll realize, maybe they won't.
I think it'll be quicker. I think they may do away with the auto conference thing next year.
Yeah, no, I don't
think anyone could have forecasted what we're looking at here with Arizona State and Boise State.
No, definitely not. I mean, especially
you would have thought it was going to be Oregon or Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson, and I don't even know what they were expecting. Notre Dame. Notre Dame can't do it. Notre Dame can't do it. So I don't know what they're expecting out of the Big 12. That's probably my biggest point of contention here is there are some teams in the ACC that can show up in a given year and be really, really good. Clemson and Florida State certainly have shown that. Miami, I think, has every opportunity to be a really, really good team. There is no one in that Big 12, not one program that I feel comfortable will ever win a 12-team playoff. Not once. And if that's the case for your league, and you can tell me, well, you're just projecting that, you have no way to prove that. Well, but we have a lot of data points here. And in a league, if I'm looking up at Iowa freaking State and Arizona State playing for something that is on level footing with Georgia and Texas, I can't sleep with that. I can't.
And no, I understand your sentiment, but again, I just don't know how, because the playoff was all dependent on getting all these conferences to agree on the terms. And you can just say, oh, well, if the Big 12, let's take away the Big 12 auto bid, and maybe they'll throw their hands in the air, and you
don't get a choice.
No, okay, I understand, but I don't know if like what can the agreement. I don't know how long the agreement is in place for these auto bids. I don't know if they can. I'm sure there's probably a way that they can finagle it and get rid of it. But I think that depending on what happens this year will very heavily affect what they do going forward. But
in my dummy bracket that I made up, the teams lost too many games to make it into the real bracket, but this would be a way better bracket. Here are the matchups that we would get. We would get Miami at Tennessee for the right to play Penn State. We would get Clemson at Ohio State for the right to play Texas. We would get Bama at Notre Dame for the right to play Georgia, and Ole Miss at South Carolina for the right to play Oregon.
Okay, so but you still think
you can't do it because there has to be penalty for losing games.
Yeah, but also you would still have Clemson in even with their are you saying there's still auto bids, or are you just saying,
there's not auto bids.
Okay, so then why is Clemson in?
Honestly, I look at that league and the fact that they won it, and in this data point, I would in this when I'm the czar, I'm making up my own rules. I would go, okay, you won the ACC, that's fine, I'll put you in.
Okay.
I mean, because at that point down the list, I think my options there are going to be some sort of Indiana or Arizona State. I
get it.
It's probably just Clemson's won some national championships lately. They've got some 5-star recruits and guys that are going to go in the first round.
Okay,
I'll give them. They're the second to last spot.
All right,
that was the non-scientific way that I roundabouted that.
Fair enough.
It's probably a brand thing. And look, I admit that if we're talking 8% of this take is just laughably stupid. But I think that it's rooted in a foundation that is correct. And so
I do want to say though, I think the elitist take in football is it makes sense because when you look at basketball and baseball, you can have underdog teams that can actually succeed just because the playing field is a little bit more even as opposed to football.
In football, the better team wins far more often than basketball.
Yes. But we still do see that there can be upsets in football. It happens in the first few weeks of the season every year. It happens all the time. So I don't want to agree with you fully on the elitist side and saying that there's these teams that just don't deserve to get in. Let's let them get in for at least a few years and see if one of them can pull off an upset. And if they can, let's keep doing that because that's what makes basketball and baseball so great.
Yeah, I mean, in basketball, that first weekend, they win, and they're never around for the second weekend, and certainly not around by the time you get to the third weekend for the Final Four, and that's when the big boys show up. And I think that's going to be the case here when we get to the Final Four. I think you're going to have, very likely to me, Texas, Oregon, Georgia, and probably Penn State. Is probably what it's going to look like, and then you'll probably get to the end, and we're probably going to get Oregon and Georgia. I mean, it's what it feels like. Now, Carson Beck is a big question mark here, and we'll see how that kind of shakes out. But that's what it feels like to me, and that'll be, great theater. But I did start the segment, even though I've complained for the last 12 minutes of it. The concept is great. It just needs to be tweaked.
Yeah,
that's the take here. I tweeted this out. Like, I have no sympathy for South Carolina and Alabama and Ole Miss. Like, you lost to teams you don't need to be losing to a lesser extent South Carolina, but they didn't step up and win the games they needed to win. In Alabama, you can't lose to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. You don't get to complain about that.
Ole Miss, you can't lose to Kentucky.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's just egregious. It's the only game they won all year in the league. So yeah, you don't get to complain when you lose that game. But I do have to sit here and look at when I see a Boise State Bronco helmet sitting there with a 3 next to it. I'm going, we gotta tweak this. You can't get the 3 seed because you beat Hawaii. That doesn't jive with me. So we'll talk to Denton Day about all of it coming up in 15 minutes. Don't go anywhere. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio Video Security Solutions, avssla.com is the website. They make things so easy over there at Audio Video Security Solutions. My wife and I are technologically inept. I've told you that many, many times, but we've got some technology in the house now that they've put in that we can operate quite well. And that's because the folks at Audio Video Security Solutions installed it fantastically, explained it fantastically. So all of our speakers they installed, they hung all of our televisions in the outdoor area where the Myers man likes to play some baseball. We've got the ability to play some great tunes out there with some speakers. It sounds fantastic, and the customer service after the installation has been sensational for us as well. Start your process today. Give Mitchell Fisher a call. The beauty of it, this is his cell phone number. He's the owner of the company. He's going to be your point person to start that process, whatever the project may be. It's 225-439-7920, 225-439-7920. Give Mitchell a call. Tell him what you're trying to do. He'll be sure to get you started on the right foot. You can also check him out online at avssla.com. Invite you to check out the Instagram because it's got great examples of some of their capabilities. Audio, video, security, all of it is right there at avss_BR. It's Audio Video Security Solutions, avssla.com.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared toward seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. a family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Did you jump the gun there with that phone call?
Yeah, the listeners don't know this, but I just called Denton Day, and we have him in the next segment. So
at least he's prepared. Sometimes you never know if they're going to pick up.
Yeah, he was ready.
He's ready to rock.
Guess he thought we were just 9 minutes early. That's all there is to it.
We're never 9 minutes early.
No, never. But we're not 10 minutes late.
That's true, and that can be an issue for some folks. I've said this many times. I don't know how many Emmys I'm gonna win or how many awards. Yeah, I don't know. What that's gonna look like over the course of my career. I don't know if I'm the funniest radio host that's ever lived or the smartest. I don't know if I have the best. No. I don't know if I have the best voice of all time. But I can stay on the clock.
Oh yeah,
I can stay on the clock on a radio show,
and that is important, Hunt.
And we make that happen. David Rosher, who's in sales, nobody cares about this at all, but he said he really enjoys my show because the only thing he does is go look for his clients' live reads, and he always knows exactly where they're going to be on my show because I'm always right on time on the clock. So
always.
You got it, Rosher. Let's talk a little bit briefly about this story that is got legs. I said on Friday that I would give up every penny to my name if North Carolina hired Bill Belichick to be their head coach. That was probably a stupid thing to say because it sounds like they might. Bill Belichick was on with McAfee today, and he said that he met with North Carolina for 5 hours on Saturday. And Belichick kind of elaborated on what his potential is in the college game. He said that a lot of colleges are looking at the NFL-type models to structure personnel and coaching, and the job is too big for one person. You've got to have a general manager. You've got to have a coach. You've got to have a salary cap manager. And he obviously has come from that world where you have to deal with moving money around, and you've got to make sure that your roster is complete, and you deal in financial terms. And now that's what the college game is like. As I try to give this a little bit of credence, because I dismissed it so quickly on Friday, I guess if you're North Carolina, the pitch is that you can bring in the greatest football coach ever, the most accomplished football coach ever, to run the program for 4 or 5 years. I mean, he's in his 70s, so it's not like this is going to be a 10 or 12-year contract here, but you could bring in a guy who obviously knows a lot of football and who gives you instant credibility within your organization. If you're Belichick, I guess he's just not going to care about the transfer portal and the NIL stuff. Like, a lot of that is recruiting is, for lack of a better term, like sucking up to 17, 18-year-old kids. And now when they get to campus, it used to be a process of de-recruiting and being tough, and now you kind of have to continue to stay on their good side because they can leave so quickly. And I just can't see Bill Belichick coaching that way. I can't see Bill Belichick being the happy-go-lucky, always recruiting, high-energy football coach that we feel like you need to be at this point. Bill Belichick doesn't have any Dan Lanning in it. He just doesn't. I don't see any of that, and I just don't know why he would subject himself to this never-ending grind that has run other accomplished coaches out of the sport. And not even just football. Like Tony Bennett bailed. Obviously on the basketball side, you saw Jay Wright bailed. Nick Saban bailed. I mean, guys that are at the top of the sport just can't handle the consistent grind that it takes to build a program and sustain it. And, like, I just have a hard time seeing that that's what he wants to jump into here. The just nightly phone calls for recruiting and constantly concerning yourself with boosters and who's writing checks where and where we can allocate the funds and speaking engagements, not to mention the game planning, running camps and all that kind of stuff. And I guess as I kind of talk my way around all this, maybe Bill Belichick's just not going to deal with all that stuff. They're going to hire somebody to do it. I'll hire somebody to run the camps. I'll hire a recruiting coordinator. I'll be the closer. I'm not getting on the plane. Like, he's at a point where he doesn't have to prove himself. If it doesn't work out in a year or two, he just quit. But maybe he'll just hire a staff and he'll coach the team, and that'll be all he worries about. You couldn't get away with that at a place like it has national championship aspirations. But if you're North Carolina and you're just trying to be a little bit better than mediocre, which is what they've kind of been my entire life, he's giving you kind of an opportunity to do that. We've seen this model. They did it with Mac Brown. Herm Edwards was kind of this way. Like, we've seen some different programs try this out. I'm just trying to see it from both sides and see if it makes any sense. I'll tell you this. If I'm North Carolina, there's no way I'm doing it. No way. North Carolina has money. They're in a conference that they can compete in. They're in a talent-rich state. And they can be a competitive ACC program if you get the right guy in there. I don't think Mac Brown's the right guy. I wouldn't try it on a 70-plus-year-old Bill Belichick. It didn't make any sense at all to me when this news initially broke, but I guess it just would be a little bit of a different situation than what everybody else in college football is trying to do, and maybe it works. We'll see. Becky, got any thoughts on Bill Belichick going to the North Carolina?
Yeah, it sounds preposterous, but like you said, apparently it's not. I don't think that it would work.
I mean, can you see him making phone calls at 8:30 at night to high school juniors?
No, and it's just weird. But maybe he's one of those guys, because to me it's like, why would you, like, you weren't doing very well at the Patriots your last few years, so you left and retired, and you got a pretty cush gig now. You're probably making some decent money.
He's got enough money.
He's got enough money, so like, the money's obviously not the reason, but like, he just must be one of those guys that wants to be able to prove that he can do it. And people say that he probably can't. I don't think he will succeed. I don't know, this is going to sound crazy, but I've never thought super highly of Bill Belichick just because of what happened after Tom Brady left. And now he's still a good coach, but I just don't think that he's going to have the chops to do it in college football, and especially in college football that's completely different and is just not suitable for older guys usually.
I think he can coach football, and I think he would be a good game day coach for North Carolina. But this sport is about roster composition, and that's the most important thing. Mario Cristobal can't coach out of a wet paper bag, and they almost made the playoffs this year because he went and got a bunch of good players. They went and got Cam Ward. Like, you've got to go get dudes, and I'm just not convinced that Bill Belichick is going to do that.
No.
And so, then I don't know if you can put a staff together to go do it without the head coach doing it. I just don't know if that works. So. We'll see if anything comes of it. He was hinting at it on the McAfee show today. I think it would be a pretty foolish decision by a lot of people involved, but it would be fascinating. That's for sure. So we'll ask Denton Day about it. Coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com. How about this? 10 years, 100,000 miles for your warranty. 10 years. Most of us don't even drive a car for 10 years. So essentially, for the life of that vehicle, it's under warranty. 100,000 miles under warranty. And how about complimentary maintenance? Do that too for 3 years with every new Genesis that you buy from the folks at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Reminder, they're the only fully exclusive Genesis dealer in the state. It's right here in Baton Rouge. Give Genesis a try. Put it on your list. The second you get behind the wheel of one of those vehicles, you'll sense it. It's a luxury vehicle at a reasonable price. Check out that inventory. It's online at genesisofbatonrouge.com, but I highly invite you to get on by the store. It is first class in every way. You're going to feel like a guest when you're there. You're not going to feel like a customer. And if you can get behind the wheel of that new Genesis, you're going to be driving off the lot, and I can promise you that. Genesis of Baton Rouge. Every car on the lot is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. genesisofbatonrouge.com.
Looking for the ultimate game day experience? Come to the Queen Casino in Baton Rouge. Wall-to-wall TVs mean you'll see every touchdown in HD. Place your bets and feel the thrill of every play with our DraftKings Sportsbook. The Queen Casino, where every moment is a win.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
The best.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Minutes to go here on a Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. We're brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products, GCOPnet.com, GCOPnet.com. All your printing, scanning, copying needs, Gulf Coast Office Products. Baton Rouge Business Report, them #1 among office product distributors in the Baton Rouge area. No surprise, they're awesome folks and great partners here at the Hunt Palmer Show. It's Gulf Coast Office Products. Check them out online, GCOPnet.com. All right, I've given my diatribe on the college football playoff rankings. I told you that I think that it's ludicrous that Boise State would get a 3 seed. I don't think the Big 12 champion should been an auto qualify in because I don't think that conference merits any real respect at this point with its 2 flagship members bolting for the SEC. But that's all my thoughts on the situation. Let's talk to a guy who's probably got a little better perspective on it. That's Denton Day, SiriusXM's college football overtime with us each and every Monday. Denton, we appreciate some time. How are you?
Hunt, I'm good, man. We finally got our 12. Hooray for that.
Okay, let's talk about the 12. How do you feel about it?
I think these are the I think these are the right 12 teams based off of how they're doing this. I have always had the stance that going from 4 to 12 was aggressive and there were going to be some issues, but I think the 12 teams are the right 12 teams.
How about the seeding of said 12 and the structures of the bye, namely Boise State getting the 3 seed?
I mean, I get Boise State. I would have made them the 4 seed. I think Arizona State's better than they are. I think Arizona State has proved that they are better than Boise State is. The seeding is going to be a massive problem. They need to fix it. I understand, and I agree with winning your conference championship gets you in. I don't agree with the idea that winning your conference championship gets you a bye. I think you can just get the 12 teams in and then reseed them from there, and then your top 4 seeds get a bye. And just because you won the Group of 5 or the Big 12 or whoever doesn't mean you should automatically get a bye. So I don't love that element of it. I would have put Arizona State above Boise State. I more likely than not would have put Ohio State above Penn State. They beat Penn State. They now each have the same amount of losses. You still get a home game either way, but Penn State now has this, I don't want to say cakewalk necessarily, but they get SMU, and then if they beat SMU, they get Boise. And then they're in the semifinals, whereas Ohio State, if they beat Tennessee, they get Oregon. It almost feels unfair to Oregon to have that be the setup there. So I would have reseeded once you got your 12.
I don't think, and that seems so easy to me, because there's no one who's going to equate winning the Big 12 with winning the SEC or the Big 10. Those two accomplishments are not equal, and in my opinion, and they're given equal standing for that. And I just don't know if anyone's got the guts to stand up and say that and change it. Do you think that's going to happen?
Somebody needs to. Somebody needs to. There's too much money involved in this to do this a dumb way, right? And if we're going to do the 12 teams here, do it smart. Like I think this year, I hope this year is going to be viewed as more of the trial run. You obviously have something good. I mean, there are a lot of games in the late portion of the season that maybe those of us who are super focused on college football playoff wouldn't have cared about if it was just 4 teams. So I think that we did see a rise in importance of, and I think that was a big benefit. But now that you've got this first year under your belt and you can do the thing where just because you win the conference, you can still be the 12 seed or still be the 8 seed or whatever it is and not justify it with a first round bye. I hope somebody is smart enough to say, look, we did this, didn't work. Let's make an adjustment, keep this moving, maximize what we have going on here.
And there's no question that if you would have told me entering August, hey, in the first round, you're going to get Tennessee in the shoe, you're going to get Clemson going to Austin, I'd be like, that is what I signed up for. This is awesome. And I think that it's still going to be incredibly compelling. My elite brain, my LSU grad, 3 national championships in my back pocket, seeing the elite of the sport, looking at the screen and seeing a 3 next to Boise State's name makes my skin crawl a little bit. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe it's the wrong way to look at it, but I can't help it.
No, it's the correct way of looking at it. There is not a single person in this world, maybe outside of Boise, maybe they're a little bit drinking the Kool-Aid, the Bluefield Kool-Aid, but there's not a single person that thinks they're the 3rd best team. So the fact that they have that 3 seed is just ludicrous. It's ridiculous. Like we have such a great example of this, literally in basketball. I mean, NC State won the ACC last year and still wasn't like a number 1. Like they were like a 6 or an 11 or something like that. Like you won the conference, you earned your spot, but we're going to seed you the right way based on what we think you are, what you've shown us you are for this entire season, and not just give you the benefit of the doubt because you won a conference championship.
Well, let's talk about a little bit of the football. Penn State, what do we make of Penn State? I thought they were competitive with Oregon, but they just never win.
Their defense is bad. They never win. I mean, it's the James Franklin curse.
They never win.
If you bet on Penn State this weekend, you're a fool for that. I had Oregon. I actually adjusted the line, so I got a little bit more of a bang for my buck there. Oregon was obviously the right side, but the thing is, I actually came away from that game really pleased with the offense of Penn State. The problem is the defense got completely wrecked. I mean, they couldn't do anything with Tez Johnson. And Tez Johnson hasn't had the best season at Oregon, but he is a really good player, and he put that on display. He was their absolute nightmare. This is just par for the course for James Franklin. And, he's in a very unique situation now because you get SMU and then potentially Boise State. If Penn State loses to SMU, I don't see a way that he comes back. I mean, that might be the tipping point. Like, all right, you lose to Oregon, you lose to Michigan and Ohio State during the season, whatever. You lose to Oregon, all right, Oregon's really good. But if you lose to SMU and then potentially Boise, what is your program doing? Why, like, where's the benefit in having this guy as the head coach if he can't beat those two?
That's fascinating. Is Ryan Day under some pressure to make a run here?
Yes, but less pressure because they get a matchup with Tennessee. And while I don't feel great necessarily about Tennessee and their offense, it is still a big enough program to where it wouldn't tank him. I still think he should, prioritize winning. And I honestly think if they get to Oregon and see Oregon again, I almost might lean Ohio State. I did think they played really well against Oregon early in the season. And I think the winner of that game between Ohio State and Oregon potentially is going to win the national championship, especially with the injury to Carson Beck. I mean, I guess we're awaiting another MRI on his elbow, but if he's not going to play, I don't think he's particularly good, but I really don't think the backup for him is spectacular. So that this whole thing is so wide open. I think Ohio State has a great opportunity to take advantage of it. And I think Ryan Day, he better get his big boy pants on. You got to go win some games against some good teams.
Is Arizona State any good?
I do like them. I think Cam Scadaboo is really fun to watch. And for those that maybe didn't get to watch a lot of Arizona State this year, I think you're going to see a running back. It's funny. You'll love this. We have a text message group chat with some people at Sirius, and the group chat was blowing up because Cam Scadaboo looks like the long-lost brother of Jacob Hester. I mean, everything about them are the same, from the way they run, the beard, like everything. He is literally just a mini Jacob Hester. So getting to watch him is going to be fun. Elsewhere, I mean, they're not like a spectacular defensive team. They're not a spectacular offensive team outside of Scadaboo, but he's a fun player, and he can win you some games.
Clemson, Texas is the other matchup, and we'll get more in-depth into this in a couple of weeks right before they kick it off. But early thought, Texas is an 11-point favorite in Austin in that game.
I must be missing something. And what is Texas? I mean, I don't think Clemson is spectacular, but what has Texas done on offense to think they're an 11-point favorite over anybody maybe other than SMU or Boise State? I've been so disappointed with them. I mean, they couldn't beat a Georgia team with a backup quarterback. You couldn't beat Georgia at home. You then couldn't beat them on a neutral site where they had their backup quarterback in for the second half. I love Sark. Quinn Ewers has been a disappointment this year. I would say he's been the biggest disappointment in college football. I had such high hopes for him, and offensively, they are bland. They're just not a fun team to watch. I've already bet Clemson. I got them at 10.5, so I maybe should have waited 2 hours to get them at 11. I've already bet Clemson, not to win the thing, but I don't see Texas blowing anybody out in the college football playoffs, so I think Clemson's going to keep it close.
We shall see. We'll talk a little bit more about all of it as we move forward. We'll do it again next week. Denton, thanks, man.
I appreciate it.
Denton Day, Sirius XM's college football overtime. He's with us every Monday on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Again, I'm fired up to watch Texas and Clemson play in Austin. I could not be more excited to watch Tennessee and Ohio State in the shoe, and I think Indiana Notre Dame is interesting with that in-state aspect of it. Somebody said that this is going to be the first time. I saw a tweet. It makes a ton of sense. They're not in a conference. They can do whatever they want with their television. ABC, ESPN will broadcast Indiana Notre Dame from South Bend. It'll be the first time Notre Dame has played at home on any channel outside of NBC since the 70s. So it makes a ton of sense. They've had an NBC contract for a very, very long time, and they're not in a conference, so nobody comes in and tells them what they've got to do. But that's a wild deal. So I'm fired up to watch that as well, and then we'll get to those second-round matchups. You give me Tennessee and Oregon, Ohio State and Oregon, I'm all in on that. I think that's great stuff. So I'm a little bit gun-shy with how the process came to be, and you've got Arizona State and Boise with buys, and I just don't think that's a reasonable thing to do when you suggest what they've accomplished this season. But that's something we can discuss, I guess, further on another day. We'll step aside one more time. We'll come back and close out a Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Make LeBear's Baton Rouge your game day headquarters this season. Watch all the games on their giant screen TVs. Tackle the area's best game day food and beverages with all of your friends. And get in on the football and basketball action this winter with Penn Play and ESPN Bet. Penn's online sportsbook is now live in Louisiana. Score big this season at LeBear's Baton Rouge. However you want to play. Must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 for help.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs, even in the case of an after-hours emergency.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
.104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge and Citizens Bank and Trust are bringing you the ultimate holiday gift with our Home for the Holidays sweepstakes. Imagine 2025 with your rent or mortgage covered up to $18,000. We're here to make your holidays a whole lot brighter. Just sign up at 1045ESPN.com and you can be living stress-free next year. The winner will be notified on December 20th.
All right, so a little interesting development here over the last hour or so. On Friday, there was a report that Demarion Johnson was joining 3 other LSU Tigers in jumping in the transfer portal. And then Demarion Johnson was like, no, I'm not going in the transfer portal. And so everybody's like, oh, yeah, our bad. He's not going in the transfer portal, apparently. And so they updated stories and whatnot. And now Demarion Johnson is in the portal the day that it opens. So the freshman defensive tackle who did not see any action this year, kind of behind Ahmad Bro and Dominic McKinley in that class, is in the transfer portal at this point. LSU is sure to lose a few others. Nathan Dibert jumped in the portal today. He handled kickoff duties for LSU back in 2022 and 2023. That, of course, was taken over by Aaron Burrell this year, so Dibert will look for for another home for his kicking duties moving forward. Demarion Johnson jumped in the transfer portal as well. Jair Brown just tweeted that he's officially in the portal. So the former Ohio State Buckeye, who was in LSU secondary a little bit this year, is headed that way. And so we'll keep you posted on all that as we continue to move forward here, both on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge, as well as LouisianaSports.net, where you can find a lot of our transfer content. I got a story up there right now talking about the biggest needs for LSU in the transfer portal this cycle, so you can go ahead and check that out. All free at LouisianaSports.net. All right, Beck, we got take or leave it?
Yes, we do.
Cool.
All right. First the one. New York Mets signed Juan Soto to a 15-year, $765 million deal. The contract will end when Juan Soto is 41 years old. MLB teams are never going to learn. Take it or leave it.
I will take it. They will never learn that. They're just going to keep. I mean, you're paying for this on the front end. He's 26 years old right now. You figure that gives him like 8 really good years, and then you've got the other 7 on the back end that you'll see what you get. Maybe he's Freddie Freeman, who's in his mid-30s and is one of the best hitters in the sports. Maybe
he's Albert Pujols.
Maybe he's Albert Pujols and completely falls apart. But right now you're just worried about winning right now. And the Mets have a good team that made it to the World Series. They made it to the World Series this year.
Who?
The Mets, did they make it all the way to the World Series? Yeah.
They were the Yankees.
They lost to the Dodgers.
Yeah.
So they were in the League Championship Series this past year. And they want to add to it. And you've got a lineup that probably still going to have Pete Alonso if they re-sign him. You've got Francisco Lindor, and then you add Juan Soto, who's one of the best hitters in baseball, to it. You don't really care about the last part of that. And Steve Cohen doesn't care about money. He's got more money than he can spend, and he wants to win. And I appreciate people that run their teams like that.
I do. I just don't understand why all 32 MLB teams can't just agree and say, hey, maybe we all should just stop giving these players 15-year contracts. Like, why is there always going to be someone willing to do this when it doesn't make any sense?
Good. It's only for the Bryce Harper, Shohei Ohtani, Juan Sotos of the world.
Well, I know, but still, like, even those guys, like, why is there always going to be a team that's willing to eat 7 or 8 years of $50 million a year and potentially like destroy their franchise for like 8 years?
It won't, because he's got the money to offset it. He doesn't. Okay. He just doesn't care. He's got an endless amount of cash, and he's just going to spend it on trying to win the World Series for the Mets. That's all. He's not worried about getting the. It's not a situation like where there's a salary cap and you can't offset it. You just have to spend more money on top of it. You're going to go into the luxury tax. You're going to pay a penalty on that. It's just he doesn't care. He doesn't care about the money. It's all about how do I get the best player.
All right, next one here. The Tennessee Volunteers are the new #1 team in the AP poll in men's college basketball. Take it or leave it.
I'll leave it. I don't think they're the best team in the country. I would probably take Alabama over them. I would probably take Auburn over them. But it's all. I mean, the SEC is just a powerhouse. Kansas lost last night to Missouri from the SEC. I don't know if my message struck home at the end of hour number 1, but I'm just trying to get out in front of this for the LSU fan base. It's going to be a real bumpy go in January and February with this ridiculous schedule in the SEC. It's the best conference that we've ever seen in the sport of college basketball through 2 months, and Tennessee's right in the middle of that. It's been impressive to watch Rick Barnes go through different iterations of great teams with different nucleuses. He had the first run in Tennessee was behind the Grant Williams team.
Yep.
And then you had kind of the Josiah Jordan-James run there. They had Dalton Connect last year, and like you've still got Zakai Ziegler on this team. But they just they cycle guys out and they keep bringing in really good players. He's a great coach, and they've got a good thing going in Knoxville. That's really an everything school right now. They're good at just about everything there is. They're obviously in the football playoff. They just won the College World Series. Their basketball team's ranked first in the country. They're always good at softball. Their ladies basketball team is not the power it once was, but they're still pretty good. Like They've got some good stuff going there in Knoxville.
All right, next one here. This one's actually in relation to the Juan Soto thing. John Heyman had this. He said, allegedly, Soto was upset earlier in the year by an overzealous Yankees security guy who disallowed a family member and his chef/driver from certain areas. Seinfeld in real life. Take it or leave it.
What in the world? I can't. I mean, I'll leave it. I mean, he still played well, so it obviously didn't make him want to quit. But that can't be the reason he chose the Mets. I think it's got to be the $750 million.
Yeah, probably so.
But whatever that reporting's for. What?
All right. Last one. Syracuse football head coach Fran Brown says he believes Kyle McCord and other key members of the Orange will play in the Holiday Bowl.
Wow.
Brown said, quote, "We don't opt out around here. We play football. Syracuse will have at least one to opt out. Take it or leave it."
I will take it.
I'll take it.
I will absolutely take it, and I don't think there's anybody that's going to be immune to that. I'm curious to see how things shake out here in Baton Rouge. Things have been fairly quiet outside of Mason Taylor announcing for the draft, and what other player that I'm missing declared for the draft? Will Campbell. So, it's been pretty quiet outside of that. I'm still keeping my ear to the ground on Garrett Nussmeier, see how that goes. But the longer you go with silence, the more you have to feel like there's a good chance that he could potentially come back. I'm thinking that things are going to get absolutely nuts over the next 2 weeks with the portal and all the visits that just opened today. Now everybody can take some phone calls and decide kind of where things play out from here. But if you want to read about LSU's biggest transfer portal needs, you can do that at louisianasports.net. If you'd like to hear about LSU's biggest transfer portal needs, you can go back and listen to the first segment of this show on demand, wherever you find your podcasts. We are live. Just search Hunt Palmer Show, like, subscribe, rate, and review. That's what I opened with today, what LSU needs to do in the transfer portal. Talked about the Saints, Derek Carr with a broken hand. Where do they go from here and what things look like yesterday in New Jersey. LSU basketball got a win on Sunday. I briefly discussed that, and we talked college football playoff in the second hour. So check that out on demand if you missed any of it. Matt's going to drive you home next on After Further Review. He's back in the captain's chair after a couple of days away last week. Hope everybody has a wonderful and safe Monday evening. We're back tomorrow, same time, same place, 1 to 3. The Hunt Palmer Show, 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is that website. Jonathan Carver and his team, fantastic folks to work with. I know insurance is not the most fun thing to talk about, certainly not the most fun thing to pay for, but you may need it. And you never know when that next hurricane's coming, when that car accident's going to happen. You never know when that cyber breach is going to occur, or how expensive that could be to your business. If you don't have a great relationship with your insurance broker right now and you just see what the premium says, sign on the dotted line, and see again next year, maybe give Highland Insurance Group a call. They believe that they should be a part of your organization. The same way you trust your attorney when things go south. The same way you trust your CPA to make sure everything's in the right place. Trust your insurance broker to make sure that you are in the right market with your insurance program. The Highland Insurance Group is an independent agency. They've got access to dozens of markets. They can help you out. Go online. Check them out, HighlandIG.com. They're right here in Baton Rouge, the Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded.